The 359 is sponsored by USB Technology. The USB Implementers Forum reminds consumers that USB IF logos are displayed on certified USB products, so the next time you're shopping for a reliable USB charger, cable, or device, look for the logos. Get the whole story at enablingusb.org. Hey, welcome and good morning, everybody. It's episode 442 of the 359 podcast. You know me, I'm BVG, and today we're talking all about the Zuck. And to do so, we got Ben Fox Rubin and special guest Rich Nieva. Hey, Rich, great to have you back.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Zuck, yeah. Thanks for being here.
You saved that all morning just to do that now, didn't you?
I did. That's the only reason I invited Rich on.
Yeah.
So I can drop the mic and leave now.
We didn't practice that. No,
that felt so good. Either way, Rich is visiting New York. And during his time here, we figured it would be a great opportunity to just kind of do a retrospective and talk a lot about your reporting on Cambridge Analytica, all the different Facebook scandals. So definitely send in questions related to that. And we also wanted to end with a story that's been percolating this week about Google tracking people's information even after you turned off location tracking. I have to admit, I kind of suspected this was happening already, but people seem pretty upset about it. So we'll jump into that too.
Yeah.
Either way, send in your questions and comments. BVG will get to as many as he can at the end of the show. And let's get to the podcast.
And here we go. We'll see you guys back in the chat in 3 minutes and 59 seconds from 3, 2...
Welcome to the 359. I'm Ben Fox Rubin, and with me is special guest Rich Nieva, CNET's reporter covering all things Google and Facebook, and I would argue the nicest guy in tech.
Oh,
Today, you're very welcome. Today, we wanted to focus on the biggest, but certainly not the only scandal troubling Facebook this year. It's about Cambridge Analytica, a political consulting company that gained access to millions of users' Facebook data and used it for targeted political advertising. Did I get all that right?
Yeah. It's been quite a year covering Facebook.
It's been pretty busy for you, I'm sure. So one of the first things that I wanted to ask you about was, have you seen anything change with Facebook or Mark Zuckerberg? Like, are they chastened, or do they kind of like have a different way about them after the Cambridge Analytica scandal? It's not like Facebook didn't have scandals before, but this one was really significant.
Yeah, I mean, this does feel like the first one that actually like really stuck. Mm-hmm. And when you asked me to be on this today, I was thinking back about how long it's been. It's been 5 months, so and it's still going on. But yeah, it does seem that like this has actually affected the company. Their executives do seem kind of a little bit more introspective about their role in the world. And
kind of realizing that maybe Facebook isn't like it like isn't always this beacon of goodness and, you know, kind of like connecting people. Like whenever I watch F8, that's like the thing that they always talk about. They're like, we want to connect the world, and it's this like vaguely world peace kind of thing. And to a certain extent, it kind of feels like they're at least admitting that, like, look, this is a giant platform we created. It's broadly used for advertising. That's how we make our money. And sometimes it can get gamed. And to me, it seems like there's at least an admission that things could go wrong there sometimes. I don't know if I'm totally right about that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, Facebook executives have said that, like, look, maybe we were a little bit too optimistic about this, and we didn't.
How refreshing.
And we didn't realize how terrible some people could be. They didn't say it in those words, but
close enough.
Yeah,
it's a step in the right direction, I would imagine.
Right, and now they realize that they have to actually, they have to prevent abuse in a way that they probably didn't think of before.
Yeah. One other area that I wanted to touch on was, so you were in D.C. earlier this year for the Zuckerberg hearings.
Yeah.
Can you kind of tell me a bit about like what it was like to be there? What did you see? What was it like, watching Zuckerberg get, kind of peppered with questions, all that stuff?
Yeah. Well, it was a circus. It was over 2 days, and it was a combined like 10 hours of testimony.
Oof.
And it was well, first of all, you're sitting in these tables like right behind him, and it's I don't know how many reporters are in the room, but there were a lot. And I just remember him walking out, and photographers taking photos of him for like a minute, a good minute when he sits down. And like
Yeah.
before he sits down, like people taking pictures of the empty desk.
I'm surprised all that flashing didn't short circuit his brain or something. Either way, I also wanted to get really quickly to another story. The AP reported this week that Google is still tracking your location even if you turn off location tracking. Rich, you told me ahead of the show you can actually fix this problem. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's kind of it has to do with the settings. There's a setting called location history, where if you turn it off, Google is still tracking you according to this story. It just won't have your location show up in your Google Maps timeline. But if you toggle off another setting called web and app activity, then then it'll start to be better.
Yeah, it's so nice that they make this really easy for us to prevent some of this stuff. But anyway, if you want to read more about these stories, check us out on CNET. I'm Ben Fox-Rubin.
I'm Rich Neva.
Thanks for listening.
And thanks, everybody, for joining us for the recording of the audio podcast. Rich, thanks for such detailed reporting. You see a lot of the media hype surrounding stuff like Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, and it's nice to see somebody get serious about it and get analytical and not just make jokes, That being said,
that's what we're here for.
The first question is, what kind of oil does Mark Zuckerberg take?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we want to know.
Oil?
Yeah. What kind of oil to make sure all the gears work?
I don't even know what that means.
He's a robot. It's a robot joke.
Yeah.
Rich, it's a news show, but you got to loosen up a little bit, buddy. So anyway, send in your questions and comments, and I'm going to do my best to filter through the crap and get something good to keep the conversation going.
Okay.
I want to know, you use the phrase beacon of goodness when describing Facebook. When is Facebook ever a beacon of goodness? It was a satisfying distraction at best.
Well, it's more like how exactly does the platform promote itself, right? It's the type of situation that any company that markets itself and talks about itself will obviously try to present the best possible foot forward. And the way Zuckerberg, for the longest time, and still at F8 this year, if I'm right about this, talks about connecting people and how that's really important. And they kind of got back to that too with their advertising, where they're like,
we came here for the friends.
Yeah, you came here for the friends and stayed for the Russian election influencing, but there was still kind of this undercurrent of, we're here to connect people, and in connecting people, we hopefully are making the world better. Even though I would argue you're just making people jealous of everybody else's vacation, but that's just my
for the
opinion.
longest time, their mantra was make the world more open and connected, and then they changed it amid all this to bring the world closer together. So
it's not that different, but yeah, I mean, it's. By the way, one other thing that we didn't get to because it's a 4-minute podcast, you also did pretty deep reporting on Zuckerberg's his background, his history. You went to his old stomping ground in Westchester County, where I'm not originally from there. I'm from Philadelphia, but I lived there for 7 years. So
yeah.
Can you kind of give us some of the highlights about what you learned on your reporting? You spent months looking into kind of what it was to build the Zuckerberg robot and how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, I went to Dobbs Ferry, New York, and which is where he grew up. Visited his old high school. I tracked down his old fencing teacher, his fencing coach, and one of his classmates, and just saw where he grew up. It's this big white house on a corner of a quiet street.
One of the things that I'm kind of curious about too is when you talk to some of those folks, for instance, the fencing coach, was there any awareness when he was going through high school that this guy's going to be a big deal? Sometimes when somebody is really different or perhaps so brilliant, it's pretty quickly identified very early on. Is that something that maybe people told you about?
They did, yeah. I mean, so he was the captain of the fencing team. He was their co-captain, and one of the things that I remember his classmate telling me, who was also his fencing teammate, was that he was really quick, and he was physically a quick fighter. Like he could parry and adjust.
I'm like super not seeing Mark Zuckerberg being
Exactly,
a quick
right?
fencer.
Right? And she's telling me the story about him like at a match, and all I keep thinking about is their old mantra, which is move fast and break things.
Right. That's pretty funny.
Which is like one of the things that critics have seized upon that philosophy as to why they're kind of in this mess now.
Yeah, I had no idea that mantra related to fencing. Very interesting.
It doesn't.
I'm kidding. All right. Anyway, let's get to questions. BBG. Let's see what people want to talk about.
Yeah, coming in from Ricky B. Could Facebook sue CBA for damages to its image? That's a great question.
Let's let you field that one.
I don't know. It hasn't really come up.
I'd be surprised. They have teams of lawyers. Why wouldn't they? Like, I guess you could sue anybody if you wanted to. But as far as you could tell, this isn't something that's really been on the table or been discussed by Facebook at this point.
No, I mean it would be a bad look, Facebook
to sue Cambridge Analytica.
Well,
Interesting.
Facebook is kind of the behemoth here. It would look like a deflection, I think.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
And their big thing this year has been, we're going to take more responsibility for our role in this, and so to do that would kind of maybe negate some of the work that they've been doing to their image.
Yeah. Also, Cambridge Analytica as a company really no longer exists, and there's hardly any money there. So what exactly they would get out of it, I'm not really sure. But either way, that's a really good question. That was an interesting perspective.
Mm-hmm. Josh Boyd coming in with, for the location tracking, doesn't Google use that for live traffic in Google Maps already?
I think that is one of the aspects, yeah. I think the primary concern for people was that you're supposed to, when you turn off location history, the assumption is that they're no longer tracking my location. The problem is, and this was why I assumed like this wasn't really all that surprising, was that it's still, especially on a phone, for the phone to work, your cell phone provider and Google and Apple, like they have to have some awareness of where the phone is located or it ceases to function as a phone. So I don't know. That was my impression. Obviously, people are, justifiably annoyed that you go into the settings, you think you turned off location and you didn't. So.
Right. I think that's part of the reason it struck such a nerve, is that people think it's a little disingenuous.
Mm-hmm.
Something called location history, you'd think you turn that off and they would not track that.
One of the other things that I've been hearing from, Google and I think Facebook too this year is that we're going to do a better job helping users with their privacy and deleting some of their information. However, they always mention it's going to make these services worse, or it's going to make them more difficult. What do you think? Like, how do you think users are responding to that? Are they okay with that balance? I always wonder, like, do people even care? Are they digging into the settings? Like, I don't know that they are.
I wonder if people even know. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing that's kind of hit home here, is that there was a story a couple of weeks ago about Gmail and third-party app developers being able to read your inbox, which for people,
about that.
Yeah, for people like us who follow this every day, like that's not really surprising, but like people are actually starting to understand how these companies work.
I don't know. I feel like that one's kind of icky. Like, I'm not that crazy about that one either. But yeah, like people find out about it and they're like, oh, not cool. Anyway, more questions.
Mike Shaw asks, should Congress step in when it comes to Google tracking? And I think maybe we should stay away from the word should and say, could Congress step in?
I think that every time one of these kind of privacy debacles breaks out, there are Congress people who make statements. Another call that I saw the other day was privacy experts asking the FCC to be involved. So yeah, if this kind of blows up more for Google, that's something that could be discussed.
I remain skeptical that Congress is actually going to step in and do anything about this stuff. It's pretty difficult for them to like even pass a budget on time these days. So I would say don't hold your breath when it comes to this kind of thing. But it might get to the point where they would have to step in if it just continues to worsen. And this year is a really good example.
Yeah. Or they'll tweet about it.
Or they'll tweet about
They'll
it.
probably tweet about it.
Yes.
Alex Mitchell asks, does disabling the tracking feature save on battery? And if so, do we know how much?
I would say probably. It probably saves on battery, but
Disabling any kind of background
totally
app like that saves some semblance of battery, but I don't think we've had our hands on it long enough to measure it, right?
It's probably, I don't think that you're going to notice a huge difference. It's like if your phone conks out at 3 p.m. every day from heavy use, if you turn off location tracking, it's not like, I have no idea if like what you're going to get an extra half hour out of it or something, but I can't imagine it's going to like change the viability of your phone significantly. That's just a guess. It's a good question, but it's also technically pretty difficult to try to figure that out.
Yeah.
Michael Brown, first of all, welcomes Rich to the show. He's never seen him before.
Hey,
so
thanks, Michael.
Right on. Do you think these big CEOs like Larry Page, Tim Cook, Bezos, do they use Facebook, Google, Amazon, etc.?
Well, I know Zuckerberg uses Facebook, and Jack Dorsey uses
Twitter. Yeah.
But do they use it themselves, or do they have like a team, like a social media team doing it for them?
I do know that Facebook has people to help with their executive pages.
Best as I can tell, Jack Dorsey is the one responding to people on Twitter. And I kind of feel like it would be disingenuous if he wasn't. It seems like it's him, but I don't know.
Well, there have been reports about Zuckerberg definitely having a team of people to help curate his Facebook page and his image. When he travels with a professional photographer. So when he went on that big trip of the U.S. last year, that was all documented by a professional crew.
Right. And the guy is like a major executive. He's one of the world's richest people. You would expect that kind of thing about Zuckerberg, where they're really carefully curating that message. But yeah, if Jeff Bezos has a Facebook page, I mean, like I've never happened upon it. And if he does have it, it's probably pretty private. You know, like Bezos posts things on Twitter every now and then when he's walking around with a robot dog or he's in a giant mech suit. But in general, Bezos doesn't tend to tweet that often. Oh, and he also tweets a lot about Blue Origin and rockets. So, yeah.
I always imagine that the celebrity type have fake accounts, fake names, so that they can log on and screw around without being hunted, since they have their own, they have like fan pages and all that, and the official ones.
James Comey is a perfect example of that. James Comey was kind of like chilling out on Twitter for a while until I think it was a reporter at Gizmodo.
Yeah.
Is that right? Ended up like tracking down, like connected the threads and figured out that it was James Comey, and like he eventually
was he at Jimmy Co or something like
that?
No,
it
was
was
what was it?
I don't know. It was like something like Nostradamus or whatever. It was
related
to
like
his
a
dissertation.
theologian that he put it that he wrote his thesis on or something. Yeah.
So it was something that if you were paying really close attention, you could figure it out, and it was pretty clever. Now he switched that name to James Comey, and I think he now has a verified symbol and everything. But like you're probably right that some people are kind of like lurking on Twitter. There's also like a good example is Elon Musk, where he's tweeting constantly all the time and, just kind of like raging about stuff. So you've got, the whole gamut as far as like tech CEOs and how they use these services.
But I imagine like any celebrity, somebody else runs their official fan page for people to follow, but then they create the fake name so that they can go and play like Candy Crush or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, got to play Candy Crush.
Or if you're Kevin Durant, you can.
We are running out of time. I'm going to paraphrase a little bit in a conversation that's going on in the chat. For a minute now, we've been concerned about these little cameras in the front of our laptops and on our phones, and who or what has immediate access to them, whether you've tried to disable them or not. Is that still a concern? Do we ever think that Facebook has like gone down that path?
Well, it's certainly a conspiracy theory that people always talk about. And during the last congressional hearing with Zuckerberg, he was actually asked that if Instagram spies on you. I don't. At least with your microphone. I don't know if he was asked directly by the camera, but he dispelled that.
He was like, no, we don't do it.
Yeah.
I've heard that more than any other conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
It's a really like long running one.
Yeah.
It's like I'm thinking about a lawnmower and then I'll get like an Amazon ad about a lawnmower. So
And whether or not it's true, I mean, that it won't go away, that the theory won't go away kind of tells you something about how people are thinking about these companies.
yeah, and with the Google location tracking thing, it's a perfect example why people aren't as trustful of these companies as they used to be. I thought I turned off my location history. I didn't, like there's good reason why people are kind of being a little more skeptical about how these companies are treating user privacy these days,
Yeah.
I would say. So yeah, I don't know. This is a new computer, but usually I do just block my webcam unless I'm using it. So yeah, I feel like people do that a lot more often these days.
Yeah.
Several people in the chat have pointed out that it has been documented that Zuckerberg himself covers his webcams. We have seen that too. There's
and
no
his-
real
and
story
his
behind that or
camera.
elaboration, has there been?
There's been a photo. I think like he posted a photo of him in his office, and there's something over the camera and over the mic.
Yeah, I think at the time people were a little surprised about it, but I kind of feel like, at least in the tech world, more people do it nowadays. It's just for peace of mind type of thing. So a good example of that is like Google came out with a bunch of kind of like those like kitchen counter tablet kind of things. They're like smart tablets or smart displays is what they call them. And they come with a little shutter to close the camera. And Amazon doesn't provide that for its Amazon Echo Show. And because they're like, oh, it works all the time. You're not getting hacked. So like, why would we include a shutter? But for me personally, like I would prefer if they just had the shutter in there, then I know for sure that, the camera's not watching me when I don't want it to.
Yeah.
I take a little bit of solace, and I know, like, by and large, the entire concept that you're being spied on is horrifying and terrible. But I take a little bit of solace, and I kind of want it to be true, just because, like, I talk to myself a lot during the day, and my phone is 99% of the time in my pocket until I get angry at something, and then it becomes my punching bag, and I whip it across the room. Ask anybody here in the office; they've seen it. And between that and like, if I'm gonna be crass for a second, like I fart. So like the idea of somebody like listening in on my phone and seeing like the inside of my pocket and then fart sounds, I just like, enjoy that, buddy. Good luck with that. Try to sell me Depends or something.
I would love
Just like some guy in a room somewhere.
Yeah, first of all, if there was a subscription service to like kind of like Truman Show but Brian's life, I would be paying for it. Second, you don't need to wear Depends if you just fart. I have to admit,
I'm just trying to draw that line because you say like, oh, I thought about a lawnmower, and then Amazon tried to sell me like a lawnmower blade or whatever. What they would try to sell me if they just heard me, rip ass or something.
Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes I just kind of feel like I'm being watched, like right now. It's kind of weird.
It's weird, man.
It's a weird feeling.
What did you say, Billy Ocean?
Yeah.
So in kind of closing thoughts, I'm trying to find the right way to express this. Between the spying and the cameras and the false information and the listening and the aggregation and the algorithms, and then what data is more valuable for them to conjure up? How much can they turn that around? And is there ever a world that we live in where they'd give it all up for the sake of the greater good?
Whoa. Well, okay. I can answer that last part. Absolutely not. No, like that's how they make all their money, is through user data. And as far as what's more valuable than not, I would probably say the more types of information, the more data points they have on you, the better. So whether it's age, location, home address, eye color, family members. Like the more data that they have to kind of build a biography around you, the better. And that's why Facebook is such a powerful tool, because it's basically a user survey that they then use to target advertising. And you give all your information to them. You tell them, this is you know, like my political leanings, my religion. It depends how much information you want to give them, but you know, a lot of people do actually fill out that info.
Yeah, and it depends on the advertiser too. Like if somebody wants to sell you a skateboard, you know, they're gonna target a skateboarder.
Right. Yeah. But like they're also gonna look for people potentially in certain states or counties, age groups. You know, and Facebook has all that information. And Google, to a certain extent, does too. They just kind of get it differently. Facebook's able to do it because we're basically just give it to them.
Yeah, and that's what I meant by that. You know, they're going to look for a certain demographic for, and Facebook can provide all that information. So I think, holistically, it's all important to them. It's all important.
And they're not going to give it up.
They're not giving it up.
No, that's how they make all their money.
Let's rewind like 15 years before social media and data mining was really a thing. I'm not trying to pretend like I know exactly when we could pinpoint this became a concern, because I'm not a historian. I'm just thinking like back before the time of Facebook, back before the time of any of this controversy and vulnerabilities were headline news. What kind of information would you have volunteered? Just get philosophical with me for a second. What kind of information would you have volunteered to advertisers? Because I don't mind somebody trying to sell me something that I want, and there's a tiny little piece of me that's like, I don't know, I guess cookies in a weird way can help me find something that I would want in my life. You know, I would totally volunteer information so that they could try to sell me better booze. You know, I don't mind entertainment, you know, harp movies at me, games at me, that kind of stuff. What about you guys?
I don't know.
If they weren't already mining the data out of the cockles of your search history and trying to learn what kind of human you are as the robots they are, what would you volunteer?
I think the power of Facebook is in that they're not, like, their selling point is give us this information and we'll package it for advertisers. They don't say that overtly ever. But that is their business model, and that's why people are so willing to hand over their info and to share their lives on Facebook, because it's kind of like the whole ad model is somewhat hidden from the user interface.
But that's what I'm trying to say. Take the hidden part out of it. If there was like a survey, like welcome to the internet, what would you like to buy? What would you put in those fields?
I kind of feel like if a company was that upfront about it, people would be really, would be unwilling to provide most information. You know, I think so as a good, for instance, eBay does more of this than they used to, where they ask you about your interests. And I filled out that survey because they're like, what kind of stuff would you like to buy on eBay? You know, like, do you want Philadelphia Eagles gear? Yes, absolutely. Do you want like a cool leather jacket with a skull in the back? No, that's not me. Even though I would look pretty cool. Yeah, I would look pretty amazing in that. So I think in that regard, on a shopping site, if they want to ask me my interests, that's fine. But I guess I get a little bit weirded out with like more personal information. But you know, that's where a lot of the internet is these days. Yeah. So yeah. What about you?
I don't know. If I saw guitar like a guitar ad on Facebook, you know, I would not be upset. So, but I don't know. They Facebook does have little controls on each ad where it's like, is this ad relevant? Should we not show this to you anymore? And that stuff kind of helps to weed out the stuff that you're not gonna be into.
Yeah.
But on our way out the door, anybody chime in here or on Twitter. Let us know if you would want to participate in voluntary ads. What kind of information you would like to volunteer for it. I see Life Improvement might be on board with it. Anybody else out there? Just curious. This is, you know, that it'll never happen, but get the old brain juices moving.
So this is a pretty useful corollary. Is you know, would you pay for Facebook? So that's an area that a lot of people are talking about now too, where if they had a totally different model where they didn't have to make all their money packaging your information to ads, for advertisers, would Facebook be in a better place? And would it just be the place where you could share your cat videos and your baby pictures and that kind of thing? So I'm curious about what your kind of perspective is on that, and whether that's gaining any attention at Facebook or in general.
Yeah, well, they've talked about this and they've been asked about it. Sheryl Sandberg, their CEO, has said that there will always be a free version of Facebook, and I think Zuckerberg said this too, which has begged the question: are they thinking about subscriptions? And yeah, I don't know. Would you pay
No.
for Facebook?
No, of course not. Why would I pay for Facebook? But I guess as an option for people, maybe.
If you could use Facebook and have them not collect information about you.
How much would you be willing to pay for that?
Yeah.
That's a better way to package that question, I think. I would have to noodle on that one. I don't really know the answer to that immediately. But that definitely got me thinking.
Sorry, I got distracted.
we lost
I was thinking about ways to troll the Facebook ad algorithm. Anyways, we do have to go. We're at the end of the show. Let us know if Google was listening to you, and if your devices start trying to sell you cool leather jackets, guitars, skateboards, or Depends undergarments this
But
afternoon.
only those things.
And then, thanks everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks to USB for sponsoring the show. Ben, want to take us on out?
Yeah, Rich, and thank you very much for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And Rich is here for 2 weeks, so maybe we'll have him on again. Anyway, the 359 podcast is available on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, FeedBurner, Google Play Music, Google Podcasts, the Amazon Echo, and of course, CNET.com. Thanks everybody for watching and sending in your questions. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Bye, folks.
Bye-bye.